Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. After 5 years of terror and thousands of murders in Nigeria, jihadist group Boko Haram has finally gotten the world's attention. The kidnapping of nearly 300 school-aged girls and the desperate plea of Nigeria's president has shaken people and governments worldwide. White House Press Secretary Jay Carney announced that the United States would offer assistance in helping to free the girls from the jihadist group, including expertise on intelligence, investigations, and hostage negotiation. But Carney made clear in his prepared remarks that it is Nigeria's responsibility to maintain the safety and security of its citizens. British Prime Minister David Cameron struck a different tone during his questions at Parliament.
This is an act of pure evil. It's united people across the planet to stand with Nigeria to help find these children and return them to their parents. We should be clear, this is not just a Nigerian issue, it is a global issue. There are extreme Islamists around our world who are against education, against progress, against equality, and we must fight them and take them on wherever they are.
The girls, mostly Christian, are in danger of being sold and forced into Muslim marriages. Boko Haram released a video of its leader vowing in mocking laughter to sell women as commanded by Allah until the land is filled with the blood of unbelievers. More about this in our next segment. And the ongoing Sudanese bombing of its people in the Nuba Mountains is also making international headlines. A video released by the news website Nuba Report showed a bombing run that forced a priest and dozens to run for cover. The apparent target this time, a Catholic-run hospital built by a regular guest of this program. Sudanese Bishop Emeritus Makram Gassis spoke with reporters in Nairobi, directing his comments to President Omar al-Bashir.
The bombing is an outrage against innocent civilians who are seeking medical assistance from our hospital. The sick have nothing to do with the conflict that has devastated the Nuba Mountains since June 2011. I appeal to you, Mr. President, to ensure the safety of the innocent patients at our hospital, and that our hospital should be away and protected from all conflicts.
We ask you to remember the people of the Nuba Mountains in your prayers. And the siege of homes in Syria has come to an end. Under a ceasefire deal, hundreds of Syrian rebels left their last remaining positions in the heart of the central city on Wednesday. According to the agreement, the rebels were given safe passage to other rebel strongholds. The exit of some 1,200 fighters and civilians marks a de facto end of the rebellion in the battered city. Homs was one of the first places to rise up against President Bashar Assad's rule, earning a nickname, the capital of the revolution. It was home to nearly 100,000 Christians. On Thursday, rebels claimed responsibility for a bombing in a government-controlled area of Aleppo. The massive explosion flattened a hotel adjacent to a military base, along with several other buildings. Assad's troops were based in the hotel. Unconfirmed reports estimate that between 15 and 50 soldiers were killed. More on Syria and the plight of its people later in the show. And a victory for religious expression this week as the United States Supreme Court upheld the practice of prayer at public meetings. In a 5-4 decision split along ideological lines, the court ruled that legislative prayer does not violate the constitutional prohibition on establishment of religion. The case centered on the opening prayers said during council meetings of the town of Greece in upstate New York. The majority found no intention to exclude non-Christians or pressure for them to convert. For the majority, Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote that, quote, absent a pattern of prayers that over time denigrate, proselytize, or betray an impermissible government purpose, a challenge based solely on the content of a prayer will not likely establish a constitutional violation, end quote. Writing for the dissenters, Justice Elena Kagan agreed with the majority that a public forum need not become a religion-free zone. However, she said the town should have offered more diverse prayers, since public institutions belong no less to the Buddhist or Hindu than to the Methodist or Episcopalian. And the apparent campaign to change how the church treats divorced and remarried Catholics continues. In a new interview in Commonweal magazine, Cardinal Walter Casper is answering his critics after he suggested in February that it's time to grant Holy Communion to divorced and remarried Catholics. The Cardinal emphasized that mercy must be considered and that Catholics in this situation should be given a way to reconcile with the Church and re-enter full communion. Citing Pope Benedict, who, according to Casper, said these Catholics can receive spiritual communion, the Cardinal raised the ante, asking the question, why not sacramental communion? Casper also claims that while discussing the marriage crisis with Pope Francis, the pontiff said he believes that 50% of marriages are not valid. That would make it easier for them to be dissolved. The matter will be considered during the Synod of Bishops in October. A final decision from the Holy Father would likely come in 2015. This public debate will continue, so stay tuned. I've posted some very interesting pieces on this topic on my Facebook page. Give that a look. And at this week's meeting of the United Nations Committee Against Torture, the topic was clerical sexual abuse within the Catholic Church. Archbishop Silvano Tomasi, the permanent observer of the Holy See at the United Nations in Geneva, used the opportunity to trumpet what the Church has done and how it's dealt with this crisis. He noted that since 2004, 848 priests have been dismissed, and 2,000 more have received other penalties.
Most of the abusive priests that we know of have been defrocked. So there has been action. And the action has been effective because now there is a reduction of cases.
Archbishop Tomasi further warned that the U.N. Torture Committee would be diminishing its own credibility if it allowed ideological attacks to overshadow its mission. And another stinging rebuke from the Vatican for the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Cardinal Gerhard Müller, the head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, reprimanded officers of what is the largest association of U.S. religious sisters for their apparent defiance of Vatican oversight. The cardinal criticized the group for honoring a theologian whose writings have been condemned as flawed by the U.S. bishops. He called it a rather open provocation against the Church. He further expressed concern over the group's recent promotion of certain philosophies and theories that he described as divergent from or opposed to revelation. Cardinal Müller urged the sisters to show more willingness to cooperate with Vatican-mandated plans for reform and reminded them that their entity is canonically dependent on the Holy See. And finally, the image of another 20th century pope could soon be hanging from the loggia of St. Peter's Basilica. According to multiple reports, the Congregation for the Causes of Saints has recognized a miracle attributed to the intercession of Pope Paul VI. The miraculous healing occurred in California in the mid-1990s. An unborn child was found to have serious developmental problems with a high risk of brain damage. Physicians advised an abortion. The mother instead entrusted her pregnancy to Paul VI. The child was born without complications and is now a healthy teenager. A formal announcement is expected once Pope Francis affirms the miracle decree. Pope Paul's beatification could be scheduled to coincide with the Synod of Bishops in October. We'll keep you posted.